in the city I love.
Donald Trump headlined a rally at New York's Madison Square Garden on Sunday, and Trump sought to use the iconic venue to deliver his closing argument against Democratic candidate Kamala Harris.
No one trusts her. No one takes her seriously. Everyone knows she is a very low IQ individual.
He vowed to deliver on a promise of mass deportation of those he called illegal immigrants, who he claimed had, quote, conquered American cities.
On day one, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history to get the criminals out.
Warming up the crowd included a number of pro-Trump celebrities, including former wrestler Hulk Hogan and a comedian named Tony Hinchcliffe, who made this joke.
Going on, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah, I think it's called Puerto Rico.
A senior advisor to the Trump campaign told Reuters that the joke about Puerto Rico, quote, does not reflect the views of President Trump or the campaign. While Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens, residents of the island cannot vote in U.S. general elections. And the joke at the rally sparked immediate pushback from Democrats, who said it fit with a Republican campaign characterized by derogatory and dehumanizing language.
I need people to understand that when you have some a-hole calling Puerto Rico floating garbage, know that that's what they think about you.
New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez spoke out in a video on Twitch with Democratic vice presidential nominee Tim Walz. Walz said Puerto Ricans should, quote, send a message to Republicans over the comments.
There are hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans across in battleground states that need to send them a message.
Smells good in here.
Vice President Harris happened to visit a Puerto Rican restaurant in Philadelphia earlier that day as she campaigned in the critical swing state of Pennsylvania. She posted a video on social media promising to, quote, invest in Puerto Rico's future as president. Harris has hosted a string of star-studded rallies, appearing alongside Beyoncé in Houston on Friday night and former First Lady Michelle Obama on Saturday. Polls ahead of the November 5th election show the candidates essentially tied.
To be very frank with you, my internal polling is my instinct.
Asked about her standing on Sunday, Harris said she felt the enthusiasm of her supporters was palpable.
The feeling is one of energy and excitement. What I love about the folks who are showing up is it's every walk of who we are as a country and as Americans. And it's very
Japan was in
exciting.
political flux on Monday after a weekend election left no party with a clear mandate to lead the world's fourth largest economy. Voters used the ballot to punish Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba's Liberal Democratic Party, or LDP, over a slush fund scandal and a cost of living crunch. At a news conference on Monday, Ishiba said he understood the ruling coalition lost its majority due to people's anger over his party's handling of the scandal. But as Japan faces economic headwinds and rising security tensions in East Asia, Ishiba pledged to reform the party and continue as premier.
The Liberal Democratic Party must take this matter seriously, reflect on it from the bottom of our hearts, and be reborn.
Though the election results mark the LDP's worst since it briefly lost power in 2009, and it's unclear Ishiba's premiership can survive this beating. The LDP and its junior coalition partner Komeito lost more than 60 seats in the election, including those of 2 cabinet ministers and Komeito's leader. They ended up with 215 seats in the lower house of parliament, short of the 233 needed for a majority. While the main opposition Constitutional Democratic Party of Japan won 148 seats, that's 50 more than it had before. Masamichi Ida, a political science and economics professor at Meiji University, said the road ahead for the LDP will be difficult. He said it needs new allies to cover their lost seats, but apart from the main opposition party, only 2 other smaller parties have enough to offer. That's the Democratic Party for the People and the Japan Innovation Party. But the leaders of both have said they won't join the ruling coalition. Both have also criticized the Bank of Japan's efforts to raise interest rates while it tries to wean the country off decades of monetary stimulus. This could be a major challenge for the LDP and the central bank. In one bright spot, however, a record 73 women were elected into Japan's male-dominated parliament.
Israel passed a law on Monday banning the UN Palestinian Refugee Agency, UNRWA, from operating in the country. Lawmakers cited what they described as the involvement of some UNRWA staffers in the October 7th attack on southern Israel last year. and said staffers had membership in Hamas and other armed groups. The legislation could impact the agency's work in war-torn Gaza, where Israel has been fighting Hamas militants for a year. It could also hit UNRWA institutions in East Jerusalem, which Israel annexed in a move not recognized abroad. But the law does not refer to operations in the Palestinian territories or elsewhere. The legislation has alarmed the United Nations and some of Israel's Western allies, who fear it could further worsen the already dire humanitarian situation in Gaza. Prior to Israel's passage of the legislation, the U.S. State Department on Monday said it was deeply concerned by the proposed ban.
We continue to urge the government of Israel to pause the implementation of this legislation.
UNRWA head Philippe Lazzarini called the vote a, quote, dangerous precedent that opposes the UN Charter and violates Israel's obligation under international law. He added, quote, this is the latest in the ongoing campaign to discredit UNRWA and delegitimize its role towards providing human development assistance and services to Palestine refugees. UNRWA employs tens of thousands of workers and provides education, health services, and aid to millions of Palestinians in Gaza, the West Bank, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. It has long had tense relations with Israel, but ties have deteriorated sharply since the start of the war in Gaza. The UN said in August that 9 UNRWA staff may have been involved in the October 7th assault and had been fired. A Hamas commander in Lebanon who was killed last month in an Israeli strike was found to have worked for the agency. Another commander killed in Gaza last week doubled as a UN aid worker. UNRWA confirmed both men had been employees.
Thousands gathered outside Georgia's parliament on Monday after the country's president and opposition parties called for protests against the result of an election they say was rigged. Georgia's government and electoral commission say Saturday's vote was free and fair, and that the ruling Georgian Dream Party won with nearly 54% of the vote. Opposition parties dispute that, and election observers have said there were significant violations. The results are a blow for pro-Western Georgians. The vote was seen as a choice between a ruling party that has deepened ties with Russia and an opposition aiming to fast-track integration with Europe. Zaza Mikaladze was among the protesters in Tbilisi.
We are here to protect our rights, our European perspective and equality and democracy.
President Salome Zurabishvili, who disputes the results alongside opposition parties, says the ruling party's vote share fell far short of the official tallies. She accused the ruling party of using Russian-style tactics and propaganda.
So, of course, you cannot prove anything, but the clear links that the ruling party has with Moscow, also demonstrated today by the very many messages of support that they have received, is what we have seen at work in this country.
Russia has denied any interference in the vote, saying it was the West that was trying to destabilize the situation. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban paid a surprise visit on Monday after having congratulated the ruling party on its victory. Orban, who holds the European Council's rotating presidency, said in a post on X, quote, Georgia is a conservative, Christian, and pro-Europe state. The European Union, the United States, and NATO have called for a full investigation of alleged election irregularities. Georgian Dream says it still fully supports the country's bid to join the EU.
Wall Street closed higher on Monday ahead of a packed week of earnings from mega-cap companies and the final stretch before the November 5th presidential election. The Dow climbed about 2/3%, while the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq added about 0.25% each. About 1/3 of the S&P 500 companies report quarterly results this week, including technology giants Microsoft, Apple, and Meta Platforms. Matt Stuckey, Chief Portfolio Manager for Equities with Northwestern Mutual Wealth Management, will be paying close attention.
You know, technology has been really kind of lifting the overall market substantially the last few years. And if you look at the 6 largest technology companies like Google, Microsoft, Meta, Apple, Amazon, and NVIDIA, collectively, if you were to take them as one portfolio and look at the earnings growth, year on year, they're expected to generate almost 20% earnings growth in the third quarter. If you were to look at the rest of the market and just take out those 6 large technology companies, the expected growth year on year is roughly flat. So high expectations for these companies are certainly kind of how I would characterize this upcoming earnings season.
Investor sentiment improved on Monday after energy supplies were not disrupted by weekend developments in the Middle East, as Israel's response to an Iranian attack avoided refineries. Stocks on the move included Boeing, which fell nearly 3%, after the plane maker launched a stock offering that could raise up to $22 billion in a bid to shore up its finances amid an ongoing worker strike. And shares of 3M gained more than 4% after JP Morgan hiked its price target on the industrial conglomerate stock.
Volkswagen plans to lay off tens of thousands of workers and close at least 3 factories in Germany. That's according to the carmaker's Works Council head Monday. They further said the German auto giant wants to shrink its remaining plants in Europe's biggest economy. Carsten Buchling is VW Kassel Plant Works Council head.
And unfortunately, we had to announce that the board intends to close at least 3 sites, carry out mass redundancies for all other sites, and reduce the number of products. And for all other employees who are still allowed to work for Volkswagen, their pay will be massively cut. The Board of Management is planning a pay cut of 10%, immediately and permanently.
Europe's biggest car maker has negotiated with unions for weeks on plans to revamp its business and cut costs. It includes potential plant closures in Germany for the first time, and the news fell hard on the workforce. Britta Yohn has been with VW since 1997.
These are very drastic cuts, and they obviously cause fear. We have to see how we can feed our families and what's next for this region, since this has personal consequences, but also for the region, and in fact for Germany.
Works Council head Daniela Cavallo said management is absolutely serious. She added it is not sabre-rattling as part of a collective bargaining round. The comments mark a major escalation of a conflict between VW's workers and the group's management. VW is under severe pressure from high energy and labour costs and Asian competition. It also faces weaker demand in Europe and China and a slower than expected electric transition. VW said in a statement it would make proposals for how to cut labour costs on Wednesday. It's the same day workers and management meet for the second round of wage talks and the carmaker releases third quarter results. The automaker said it was still committed to finding solutions for the situation jointly with labour representatives. Boeing launched a major stock offering on Monday, which could raise up to $19 billion. The playmaker wants to strengthen finances squeezed by a month-long worker strike and a year-long safety crisis. The US giant is offering 90 million shares of common stock and $5 billion in depository shares. The move should boost Boeing's battered finances. It's been hit hard since roughly 33,000 workers walked off their jobs in September. That stopped production of models including its cash cow 737 MAX aircraft. The firm was already in trouble after a regulator capped production of its MAX jets following a January mid-air panel blowout. The combination of production and labour problems has caused Boeing to burn cash the last 3 quarters. Last week the company reported a $6 billion third quarter loss and said it would burn cash next year. Striking workers also rejected an improved contract on the same day. A capital raise is for Boeing to preserve its investment-grade credit rating. Ratings agencies have warned a prolonged strike may lead to a downgrade in Boeing's credit rating, which could push up the cost of capital. The strike is also costing the company more than $1 billion per month. That's according to one estimate released before Boeing announced it would cut 10% of its workforce. Earlier this month, Boeing entered into a $10 billion credit agreement with banks. It also announced plans to raise up to $25 billion through stock and debt offerings.
Shares of Robinhood hit a 52-week high on Monday, after the trading platform announced it will allow users to bet on the potential outcome of the U.S. presidential election between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Robinhood said it will start rolling out election event contracts on Monday to a limited number of users who must be citizens of the United States. The contracts offer investors on its platform a chance to profit from speculating on the results of the tightly contested race. So-called event derivatives trading involves buying and selling contracts that allow traders to speculate on the outcome of specific events, such as elections, economic data releases, or policy decisions. These types of derivatives, which are relatively new and generally considered high risk compared to traditional financial instruments, have gained traction in recent years, and Robinhood is seeking to capitalize on the growing retail demand for betting products. PredictIt, a real money prediction market platform where users can buy and sell shares on the outcomes of future events, has also gained significant popularity this year in the lead up to the election. A federal judge in September ruled to allow Americans to use derivatives for event betting, marking a setback for the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission, which had sought to block them. An appeals court upheld the order in October. The addition of this service is part of a move by Robinhood to become a comprehensive financial services provider. Investor enthusiasm has fueled a year-to-date jump of more than 100% in the company's stock.
BP reported a 30% drop in third-quarter profit on Tuesday. It fell to $2.3 billion, its lowest profit in almost 4 years, but smaller than expected. BP's sticky quarter came during a slowdown in global economic activity and oil demand, particularly in China. It raises pressure on CEO Murray Auchincloss. He's vowed to boost the firm's performance with investors concerned about its energy transition strategy. BP shares have underperformed rivals so far this year as markets question its ability to generate profits, with the stock down 15%. Auchincloss has vowed to focus on high-margin businesses. He's distanced himself from the strategy of previous boss Bernard Looney to rapidly expand renewables. Reuters reported earlier this month that sources said BP had abandoned a target to cut oil and gas output by 2030. The company has also scaled back its low-carbon hydrogen investments and plans to sell its US onshore wind operations. Lufthansa's third-quarter profit fell 9% as its core brand struggled. The German airline group reported Tuesday operating profit of $1.41 billion, largely in line with analyst forecasts. The third quarter includes the busy summer months and is usually the strongest for Europe's airlines. But rising costs, unpredictability linked to the Middle East crisis, and plane delivery delays all weighed on results. CEO Carsten Spohr also blamed punctuality issues at the airline's German hubs. Lufthansa's passenger airlines generated an operating profit of just under $1.3 billion in the third quarter, down on a year before. The drop was driven mainly by a more than $250 million decline in the results of its core brand Lufthansa Airlines. Analysts said Lufthansa also saw a slower recovery in corporate travel spending. The carrier has complained about its struggles to compete with Chinese carriers still able to fly over Russian airspace. The group has launched a turnaround program at its core brand as it tries to recover after a difficult year to date. Lufthansa has already issued 2 profit warnings this financial year as it deals with costs tied to strikes. Looking ahead, the company confirmed its outlook for the full year as it aims for group operating profit in a range of up to $1.95 billion.
92 בעד, 10 נגד. אני קובע כי ההצעה השלישית ותיכנס לספר החוקים. כעת נעבור לנושא הבא שעל סדר... מה? לברך. הכנסת השכל. אתה רוצה לברך? חברת הכנסת השכל כבר הגיעה, אז היא תברך קודם ואחריה אתה. בבקשה.
Madam President, you said yesterday that the election result represented a Russian special operation and was fraudulent. Was that a direct accusation that Russia falsified a Georgian election?
No, it's an accusation that the methodology used and the support of most probably Russian FSB types is shown in these elections because it was very sophisticated with use of multiple forms of frauds. That propaganda that was used before the elections was a clear duplicate, the same way as the Russian law that we had, the foreign agents law, duplicated the Russian law. In the same way, the propaganda was direct duplication, copy-paste of Russian clips and videos used at the time of Putin election. So, of course, you cannot prove anything, but the clear links that the ruling party has with Moscow, also demonstrated today by the very many messages of support that they have received, is what we have seen at work in this country.